Russians have started their advance a little bit more than 24 hours ago. They were able to take control of these nine, they're not towns, they're villages. And in reality, they're not even villages, they're zombie villages because they are located in the so-called gray zone, in a gray zone which has been made uninhabitable by months of Russia's relentless bombardment and rocket shelling and missiles.
We hear that Russia has made what appear to be significant gains in the northeast of the country over the past few days. These 9 towns, I think I'm right in saying. Well, what's your information about what they have tried, what they have achieved?
Well, the reality on the ground is such that Russians have started their advance a little bit more than 24 hours ago. They were able to take control of these 9, they're not towns, they're villages. And in reality, they're not even villages, they're zombie villages because they are located in the so-called gray zone, in a gray zone which has been made uninhabitable by months of Russia's relentless bombardment and rocket shelling and missiles. So, in essence, they have made advances, but we have been able to deploy our reserves. And for the time being, these advances are stalled. There are still ongoing battles, and the situation is far from over. But we are under control, and we know what to do next.
So would you reject the idea then that this is Russia opening another front in the war in Ukraine?
I think it's irrelevant how you call it. Of course, they have made incursions, they have made some gains, incremental gains. But the most important thing is that, as always, they pay a staggering price for every small advance. The amount of people they're losing during these advances is just skyrocketing, and that's. Again, the repetition of the same Russian tactics. They're conducting scorched earth campaigns using meat assaults, no regard for human life. They maybe somewhere in their twisted and degraded heads, they're thinking to turn Vovchansk, which you've mentioned, which is only 5 kilometers from the border with Russia, but they're trying to turn it into the next Bakhmut or next Avdiivka, which is to pulverize it, to raze it to the ground, make it completely uninhabitable. And of course, they dream of approaching Kharkiv within artillery range so that they can continue terrorizing Kharkiv, which is 35 kilometers from the border, and it's the second largest Ukrainian city.
Okay. Yuri, we're going to leave it there because we're just about to speak to the UK's Defence Secretary. But Yuri, thank you for your time. That's Yuri Sak.
Is the UK considering at any level the idea of some sort of deal between Moscow and Kyiv?
No.
David Cameron went to Florida to talk to Donald Trump. The reports that came out of that was that he talked about a deal with Donald Trump. Is that not true?
Look, it's as simple as this. Ukraine's been illegally invaded by Putin. If you give a bully like Putin an inch, they'll take a mile. And in this case, he would take quite a lot of not just Ukraine, but I'm not sure he would stop there either. We've been in this position before in Europe, and we simply will not allow that to happen again. Now, in the end, what Ukraine does and how it decides to bring this to an end is their business. What I can confirm is the United Kingdom will back Ukraine all the way. I spoke to my opposite number, the Ukrainian defense minister, just yesterday afternoon, Minister Umerov, and I made the same point to him. Britain will stand behind Ukraine for as long as it takes, because we understand this isn't just about Ukrainian security, it's about European and British security, about global security too.
Did David Cameron say to Donald Trump, did he mention a deal to Donald Trump?
No, obviously I wasn't in the room. I know what the Foreign Secretary did say, which is it's very, very important that the United States follows the UK's lead. Remember, we just increased our money to Ukraine this year to £3 billion, our biggest ever package. We'd just done that at the time. And he certainly would have said to Trump, it's very important that the United States, for the United States' own sake, sees that package go through Congress. And I'm pleased to say that package did go through Congress, and thank goodness, because it's armaments and defense equipment very much needed by our Ukrainian friends. So I know that was part of the conversation. But there is just no sense at all in which Britain would try to persuade, strong arm, or otherwise Ukraine into accepting giving up some of their territory.
Yeah.
That's a decision entirely for Ukraine, entirely. And as I say, I don't think it's plausible at all for Putin to win this war, and it's important he doesn't.
10 months ago, I traveled to the People's Republic of China. I returned to China this week to take stock of where we've made progress and where more needs to be done, so that we can deliver tangible results for the American people. That's been the focus of my meetings over the last 2 days with President Xi, with Director and Foreign Minister Wang Yi, with the Minister of Public Security, Wang Shouhong, and the Shanghai Party Secretary, Chen Jining. We've advanced our cooperation on fentanyl and other synthetic drugs, the #1 killer of Americans between the ages of 18 and 45. Specifically, the PRC has issued a public notice to industry. It's taken enforcement action against some companies that produce precursors. Those are the chemical ingredients that make up synthetic drugs. And the U.S. and China have set up a joint counter-narcotics working group to collaborate on policymaking and on law enforcement and to share technical expertise. So this is important progress, but more needs to be done. In my discussions, I underscored the importance of the PRC taking additional action, in particular by prosecuting those who were selling chemicals and equipment used to make fentanyl, meeting its international commitments to regulate all of the precursors that are controlled by the UN Commission on Narcotic Drugs, and disrupting illicit financing networks. Earlier today, we agreed to hold the first U.S. PRC talks on artificial intelligence, to be held in the coming weeks. We'll share our respective views on the risks and safety concerns around advanced AI and how best to manage them. I reiterated our serious concern about the PRC providing components that are powering Russia's brutal war of aggression against Ukraine. China is the top supplier of machine tools, microelectronics, nitrocellulose, which is critical to making munitions and rocket propellants, and other dual-use items that Moscow is using to ramp up its defense industrial base. A defense industrial base that is churning out rockets, drones, tanks, and other weapons that President Putin is using to invade a sovereign country, to demolish its power grid and other civilian infrastructure, to kill innocent children, women, and men. In today's meetings, I discussed the PRC's dangerous actions in the South China Sea, including against routine Philippine maintenance operations and maritime operations near the Second Thomas Shoal. Freedom of navigation and commerce in these waterways is not only critical to the Philippines, but to the U.S. and to every other nation in the Indo-Pacific, and indeed around the world. That's why so many nations have expressed concern about the PRC's maritime maneuvers. I made clear that while the U.S. will continue to work to de-escalate tensions, our defense commitments to the Philippines remain ironclad. We also discussed a range of regional and global crises where China can play a constructive role. I encouraged China to use its influence to discourage Iran and its proxies from expanding the conflict in the Middle East, and to press Pyongyang to end its dangerous behavior and engage in dialogue. China has demonstrated in the past, when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, that it can take positive action. You'll recall that well over a year ago, we had concerns that Russia was considering the possible use of a nuclear weapon. And I believe that China's voice was important in, at least at that time, moving Russia away from that possible course of action. Thank you.
Thank you all.